Ancient theatres were built as a semicircle, and the word amphitheatre means theatre on both sides. About 230 amphitheatres were built across the territory of the Roman Empire, and the largest one ever built is also one of the world's greatest works of architecture and engineering. It is the Flavian Amphitheatre, now known as the Colosseum, and its story begins with a fire. The Great Fire of Rome broke out on the windy night of July the 19th, 64 AD. It raged for 6 days before being brought under control, but soon reignited and burned for another 3 days. Of Rome's 14 districts, only 4 escaped unharmed. Immediately after the fire was extinguished, a new city plan was drawn up, in which almost a third of the city belonging to the people was seized by the emperor for himself. He ordered a vast palace to be built, Domus Aurea, the Golden House, forcing many people to emigrate to other nearby cities. Nero had loved arts since childhood, and at first he also proved to be a capable emperor. Over time, however, his reign transformed into tyranny, and when he fulfilled his life's dream and performed publicly as an actor, he turned the conservative aristocratic classes against himself. These classes opposed theatre and art competitions as foreign entertainment, destroying Roman manners. He was declared a public enemy by the Senate, and the cornered Nero took his own life. After his death, 4 emperors traded places on the throne over a period of 18 months. For 7 months, the cruel and avaricious Galba ruled. This old man soon became wildly unpopular and was killed by the Praetorian Guard. The organizer of his murder, Otto, ruled for 3 months. He committed suicide after his forces were defeated. Prodigal Vitellius ruled for 8 months. He was executed by soldiers of rebellious legions who had elected their own emperor in the east of the empire and marched on Rome. They chose an experienced and respected general, Titus Flavius Vespasianus, or simply Vespasian, who at that time was suppressing a revolt in Judea. However, after the confusion arising from civil wars, he could not expect a warm welcome in Rome. Therefore, he postponed his journey to Rome for 10 months and urged his son Titus to conquer Jerusalem. The utter defeat of the Jews was to adorn Vespasian with the halo of the victorious leader, thanks to which he could defend his seizure of power. During the destruction of Jerusalem, the so-called Second Temple was also destroyed, yielding opulent spoils of war. It is the year 70 AD, and Vespasian triumphantly enters Rome. 2 years later, funded from his general share of the booty, building works started. On the site that Nero confiscated after the Great Fire, he builds a pleasure palace for the people. Placed at the heart of Rome, the Colosseum becomes its symbol. Rome's imperial regime was restored. After the Great Fire razed this originally densely inhabited area, Nero built his grandiose Domus Aurea on this site. It was a complex of lavish buildings and gardens with an artificial lake and a 30-meter-high bronze statue of himself, which was set up at the entrance to the palace, the Colossus of Nero. Vespasian preserved the Colossus, but the lake was filled in and the land reused as the location for the new amphitheatre. Over time, much of the Domus Aurea was buried or torn down. The Colosseum is built of blocks of travertine stone from a quarry 25 kilometers away, along with volcanic rock, bricks and concrete. It forms an oval 527 meters in circumference. Besides slaves, teams of professional builders, engineers, painters and decorators also worked on the construction. Its building took 8 years to complete, and the successor and heir to the throne, Titus, held inaugural games lasting nearly 100 days. The Roman historian Cassius Dio recounts that over 9,000 wild animals were slain and a mock naval battle involving 3,000 men was enacted. Such spectacular shows were infrequent in the monument's history, and not all emperors were enthusiastic for these spectacles. Some celebrated their succession to the throne, their predecessors, birthdays, or victory over a foreign enemy. The name Colosseum for the amphitheatre dates from the 6th century. Nero's successors remodeled his statue into the likeness of the sun god Sol by adding the appropriate solar crown and name, Colossus Solis. Some of the emperors also altered the statue's face to make it resemble themselves. One of them, Hadrian, moved the giant sculpture using 24 elephants to its position beside the amphitheatre, where it stood well into the medieval era and was credited with magical powers. It became an iconic symbol of the permanence of Rome. Are you afraid of heights? At the start of the Colosseum's construction, drainage ditches were dug that were 8 meters deep, and one of the reasons the building still stands today are its foundations that go 13 meters deep. The outer wall's facade comprises 3 stories of open archways, framed by half columns of the Tuscan, Ionic, and Corinthian orders, while the attic is decorated by Corinthian pilasters and small windows, between which are bronze shields. The total height is 48 meters. Each arch of the first and second floor frames a statue honoring athletes, divinities, and other mythological figures. From the decorations found in the tomb of a family of builders who participated in the construction of the Colosseum, we know that, at least in the early years, there were eagles on the second floor, which were later replaced with figures. At the top are 240 corbels with sockets for wooden masts to support a retractable awning, known as the velarium. This was to shade the audience from the heat of the sun and covers 2/3 of the arena. The immediate vicinity of the stadium features a complete support infrastructure. To the east are training schools for gladiators. Ludus Magnus, the large school connected to the Colosseum by an underground passage. Ludus Matutinus, the morning school, where animals and their hunters were trained, plus the Dacian and Gallic schools. Nearby is an armory to keep weapons out of the hands of gladiators, unless necessary, and a store for props and various machinery. Wounded gladiators were treated in the sanitarium, and there is also a military camp where sailors specially enlisted from the Roman fleet to work the velarium were stationed. Also stables for keeping all sorts of animals. On the buried ruins of Domus Aurea were built the Baths of Trajan, and in front of you stands Colossus Solis and the Temple of Venus and Rome. A triumphal arch dedicated to the Emperor Constantine the Great to commemorate the victory at the Battle of Milvian Bridge. The 17-meter-high marble fountain Metasudans, or the Sweating Post, around which a triumphal procession would turn from the Via Triumphalis onto the Via Sacra and into the Forum Romanum itself. Around the perimeter of the Colosseum was a series of tall stone posts, with 5 still surviving today. These played a role in controlling access to the building. Spectators are given tickets in the form of tokens of wood, bone, or lead, on which is written the entrance, level, and row number. They access their seats via circular corridors, numbered staircases, and vomitoria, passageways that open into a tier of seats. These quickly disperse huge crowds of people into their seats and permit their exit within only a few minutes. Corridors also offer a variety of amenities, including drinking water fountains. There are 80 entrances at ground level, 76 of them for ordinary spectators. The two on the long side of the building are for the performers.